Thank you for joining us from the latest episode of Something from the Margin of My Bible. This note comes from Exodus chapter 15 and verse 1 and really comes from one word in that particular chapter. In fact, it comes from the very first word of Exodus chapter 15. But before we get there, let me remind you of what has happened in the previous chapter. Exodus chapter 14 is the very famous account of the crossing of the Red Sea. In fact, that's one of the most remembered accounts of the Old Testament. We might say one of the most referenced accounts of the entire Old Testament. But sometimes we can then just jump from that very famous event to maybe the very next famous event without realizing the Exodus chapter 15 talks about the praise of the people. The English Standard Version above Exodus 15 has the phrase, the Song of Moses. But the very first word of Exodus 15 is the word then. Verse 1 of Exodus 15 in full reads, "Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord, saying," and the song goes on from the rest of verse 1 all the way through, my pages are sticking together, all the way through verse 18. Then later in the chapter, of course, Miriam will lead the women in a song, a much shorter song, but a very important song also. But the word then is so important because of what has just happened. The crossing of the Red Sea has happened. The salvation of the Lord has been seen. So here's the note I have, and it's actually a quotation that I have. So I actually have it in quotation marks to remember that I wasn't smart enough to think of this wording. But it says this: salvation always demands a response of praise. Salvation always demands a response of praise. So again, these people have been delivered. They've been saved through going through the Red Sea by the power of God. And what was their response? Their response was to praise Him. Now, whether we actually praise Him in song or poetry or something like that we can make any kind of application from that. But the simple fact that they praised God should not be overlooked. When we realize we are saved, it leads to a response of praise, and it always should when we think of God's salvation. So I hope that note is a very simple fact, but one that's very encouraging, should help all of us as we think about the salvation of God. And we look forward to seeing you again next time, or having you listen next time on Something from the Margin of My Bible. Thanks for listening.